Welcome to Season 3 of the Builders Podcast. I'm Matt Levenhagen. Here we share the journeys, strategies, and lessons that help entrepreneurs build what's next. Builders helping builders. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another The Builders. Today we are joined by Lorraine Ball. Welcome to the show, Lorraine.
Matt, thank you so much for having me back. This is fun. It's been, 200 episodes since you invited me.
219 to be exact. Sorry, I'm sure I invited you. Maybe in my head I did. I don't know. Yeah, we'll make it more regular. It's good to have you back. I do see you all the time. You're prolific on social media. I see you out there doing stuff and your podcast and everything else. So we're going to have an exciting conversation today because we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to a lot of us businesses. It's building teams. Mm-hmm. We did actually, we had a couple topics we were thinking about. We might have Lorraine back for another topic that we talked about. We won't even tell you what it is. We'll just tease it here. She might come back for something else amazing. But today we're going to talk about teams, which is also amazing. And because you have a lot of experience with teams, and what we're talking about today is somebody, is a team that you've been helping, and the lessons from that, and what's your kind of your unique approach, and why you're helping, because you're so smart and good at what you do, and that's who we like to talk to here. But we're gonna get into that. Now, if anybody is seriously interested in learning more about your backstory and stuff, they can go back to episode 41, I believe it was. And I believe looking at the show notes, this is why it's good to have show notes, because the host himself, after a couple of years, can go back and, that's what we talked about. But you can go back and learn more about what Lorraine's done in her life. But today we're going to just dive right into things. Let's start first, like for a minute or two, if you want to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you've done, and what you're doing today. And then we'll take it from there.
So I am a career marketer. I spent a lot of years in corporate in high heels and suits running up and down hallways until I realized that just because you have the VP chair doesn't mean you're actually in charge. And that was when I walked away from corporate and started my own business. I ran a digital agency, Round Peg, for 19 years. Along the way, I started an online training program. I started a podcast. And one day somebody walked in my office and said, "Hey, I'd like to buy your business." And I went, well, you can have the company and the clients, but the intellectual property. And I'm going to just jump off and make a side note. As you're building stuff, as one of the things that you need to think about is what's saleable, what's not, what do you want to sell? Because I had actually broken the podcast and the online training into a separate business entity so that when I sold the company, there was not even any conversation about podcast or the training, because that was something I wanted to continue to do when I waved goodbye to the day-to-day customers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so today I still host More Than a Few Words. It is a marketing conversation. It is just past our 16th anniversary. Matt, you were a guest. I apologize. I don't remember what number, but based on how long ago it was, you might have been 700 or 800, but I'm getting, I think by the time you come back, you might be 1198, 1199, even 1200.
Unbelievable.
And so yeah, it is. So that's kind of my fun. And then what I really want to talk about today is a friend of mine reached out, owns an agency, and said, you built this great team at Round Peg. Your people, everybody in the industry wanted them. Everybody was like waiting for them to move on so they could grab them. They're all doing amazing things. And they were all new college grads, greener than anything. How did you do that? And will you do that for my team? And that's what I'm doing today. And I got to tell you, I'm having A lot of fun.
So it sounds like you enjoy building teams. You
I
enjoyed that
do.
process. Yeah.
You know how life's sort of a circle. When I left corporate, I was not going to run a marketing company. That was not on the radar. Round Peg was going to be a team consulting company
Mm.
because what I had done in corporate multiple times was gone into dysfunctional organizations and fixed them and turned them into high performance teams. And I thought, this is like a real skill.
Yeah.
And this is something that companies need because turnover is expensive and your productivity and your results all hang on whether or not you can keep your people around, happy, motivated. And what I learned was in 2002, when I started the business, we were in an economic situation where there were more jobs, there were more people than jobs. When you have a situation where there are more people looking for jobs than there are jobs, it's an employer's market. You don't like
Mm.
it? Fine, go. I got 5 people lined up. One of them will take your job. With that attitude being pervasive in the marketplace, selling people on the idea that they could save money, they could make money by investing in their teams was a bit of an uphill battle. And so along the way, people kept saying, hey, you know how to do marketing. I went, yeah. One day I woke up, I had a marketing company. I thought, I ain't gonna do team building because people ain't paying for that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so this is kind of full circle for me. And I'm getting to do a lot of the things that I did with my team. And I'm getting to do a lot of the things that I wish I'd had the time to do when I had
Mm.
my team.
Mm. That's interesting though, because so you have a long like this isn't something that just came out of you had this agency, you're pretty good at building a team, and you're just going to help somebody else do it. We're rewinding a few decades, and
Hmm.
you already had this kind of in you, like you had that expertise and experience, and this is actually what you wanted to do. So fast forward 19 years plus,
Plus,
that you're able to actually do the thing you want to do way back then. So
mhm,
that's really really cool. So all right, so you had somebody call you up and say, hey, please, I need help.
mhm,
I want to
yeah.
improve my team. I don't want to have to keep firing and hiring.
Hmm.
So how did that go? How did you know? First of all, I guess what were the first things you did when you walk into in this case, it's what kind of company is it? It's
It
a
was a marketing company,
marketing
and
company.
that made it really easy because it was both building a team, but it was also building them into strategic marketers, not order
Hmm.
takers. You know, a lot of a lot of marketing companies today have account execs and production people, content writers, video people who take orders all day long. Oh, you need 5 reels? I can do 5 reels. Oh, you need 3 blog posts? I can do 3 blog posts. And they never step back and go, wait a minute. Looking at your business, I think we can get better results if we cluster the reels around this topic for this month. And then next month we pick a new topic and not just some random new topic, but a topic that's relevant for your business. And I can give you some examples on how that works. But learning how to look at a client, big picture, learning how to talk between the team members and say, hey, this is the strategy I want to take this client on, but you're doing the social and you're doing the content, and I'm only doing the video and the ads. And it's all got to work together. And oh, by the way, we're virtual.
Hmm.
So yeah. So the first thing I did was I actually stepped back. Her team at that time, and there's been a little bit of turnover, but I think really good turnover. I think the team in place now is really strong, and we're good at some of the things, but none of them had a real background in marketing, which is very common. Video people, very often, good video editors, very often don't have a marketing background. Great, fabulous graphic designers make amazing pictures and don't have any idea why the call to action needs to be placed here, not here, and why the logo can't be hidden behind a cloud in the ad. Because the logo does not disrupt the aesthetic. The logo is the aesthetic.
Yeah, this is actually an important thing, like even in like just pure web design development. Like you have a designer that understands development is much more valuable than just a designer that's going to design, like understands who's
what
going
does it take to build that?
Yeah.
I want this picture to float across the page. What are you going to have to do as a developer to float that? So how do we get all of that on the table up front? And stepping back even further, how do we deliver something for the client that meets their objectives?
Right. And that's the other thing you're saying here. And I think I've said this order taker thing for years and years myself, because I never wanted to be an order taker. Even as the business owner, I don't want to just be here and see people are just sending me tasks all day. And I want to actually be engaged with them and think outside the box and pause. And I think that our clients appreciate that, because that's why we have probably long-term clients, is because they know we're looking out for them. And once in a while I will say, hey, wait a minute, or there's a better way to do this, or maybe we can not have to do this all the time because we can build it one time like this. And all those things come up. And so you're not just thinking about, they just got this task, I'm going to complete it and then deliver it back and say it's done. I'm going to always be aware of, so it's really cool that you're thinking that way with the teams.
Yeah. And so, the early sessions, I did them as group sessions because they didn't have that solid footing. And there was just some things I needed them to learn right up front. And then we broke up and I started meeting with them individually. And one of the first exercises that I did, Marketing 101, who's your customer's customer? I mean, I know who your customers are. Who's their customer? And if you can't tell me right off the top of your head, we got a problem. And so this is my pet peeve about leadership development courses in general. They go in, they wave a magic wand, you spend 2 days, you come home, you're smart. It's all going to work. No! Number one, they throw too much at you. You can't process it all. You can't use it. You forget it. So in a 30-minute session, we talk about key attributes of a customer. And then, pick 2 of your customers. Next week, when we come back, I want you to tell me who their customer is. And it did 2 things. It really forced they're like, well, we have a customer persona. I said, okay, if you got a customer persona, tell me, is that really who their customer is? Because a lot of times those personas are written by AI. They're very generic. The customer's your client is impressed because it sounds very official. But at the end of the day, it bears no relevance to who they're really selling to. So it was a good process check. And I don't want to say we went through every client, but we went through all their big ones, one at a time, and really got clear on who is your customer selling to. And then we did some side conversations on how do you have a conversation with a client who keeps saying, well, everybody. And
What everybody?
Well, everybody is my customer.
Oh,
anybody can use my product.
Right. I mean, they don't even know. They don't even know.
They don't even know. They don't want to know. Yeah. But you can't do your job. And so then sometimes we would do group discussions on, so let's pick this client. We're going to dive into just this client. And all we're going to talk about is how does this definition of a customer impact your ads, your social media, your landing pages, and giving each of the team members an opportunity to think about the customer, their interaction with the customer, and how how that had to overlap. I had one person who was creating ads who had never looked at the website. She'd been hired to do ads. She went in, she was doing ads. She was following whatever had been set up in Google Ads before. She
Mm-hmm.
was tweaking and optimizing on new words. I'm like, well, where are you taking them to land? She says, well, we have a landing page and this is the link that Max gave me. And I'm like, okay, but have you looked? Do you know? And turns out the page had changed 3 times. The link was still there. The content had been updated.
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's not
So,
good.
yeah, communication. So, step number 1, who is your customer? So, who is your customer's customer? Step number 2, what does your customer really want in the next 12 months? And this is a question that agencies don't ask. We
Hmm.
want to grow. Okay. How much? What's a win? Is it 5%? Is it 50%? Is it more customers or more profit? Is it bigger ticket items or lots of variety? What is it that you want to do that's going to make you look back on this year and say, that was a good year? And if you don't know the answer to that, how do you create ads? How do you create content? You end up creating very generic. And so we did the same exercise where then they had to go to the clients and either look in the files or actually, when they were meeting with clients, have these conversations. Well, what is your priority? Well, I want this and this. Okay, great. Which one is more? Because you got this much budget. So you can't
Right.
have, or you've got a good budget, but how do you want it? What's the percentage? Do we do 60-40? Do we do 50-50? You tell me where you want to be. I'll figure out how to get you there. But learning how to have those conversations with customers. So now you have who their customer is, you have what they want to accomplish. And the third thing is, who is their competitor? And I do this whole thing on 3 different levels of competitors, and I can give you a link to drop in the show notes. I don't want to go through that.
Mhm.
But there are people that are directly doing what you do. There are people that offer an entirely different solution to the same problem. And then there are people that are just competing for dollars. Business owners only have so many dollars. And if they buy new computers and new furniture, even if they want to run ads this month, they may not. So understanding who falls into each of those categories. And then get on social media, get on websites. Again, pick your top 3 clients. And now let's look at these competitors and do an honest assessment. And that's hard. It's painful for every business
Well,
owner.
the competitive analysis, is it like just going on social media and just studying
It's,
them, or are there tools you can use for that type of
um,
thing?
there are lots of tools that'll benchmark. You can have ChatGPT help you out and pull a list of competitors. You can even say, hey, take a look at this website, take a look at our website. Tell me from a user perspective, where are their strengths, where are our strengths?
Hmm.
The other thing that you can do is you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, my target customer has shifted. Because more than a few words was a marketing conversation for business owners. It never really was. It was always a marketing conversation for marketers. It was way too
Hmm.
technical. But I was selling to business owners, and I thought that that's who my audience was.
Oh, right,
No,
right.
business owners hired me. Other marketers listened to me.
Oh, yes.
It only
Oh,
took me
aha moment.
it only took me 15 years to figure this out. Okay. But I went to ChatGPT and I said, okay, this is my target audience now. Marketing Melissa, she's 35 years old. She's got some experience in marketing. She definitely knows some things better than others. She turns to me for this kind of information. Now look at these competitors and tell me how I match up.
Hmm.
Where are they better? Where am I better? And they'll look at websites. The thing I liked about ChatGPT, and I think I might have even used Gemini for this also, is it went out and it did a more well-rounded search. It looked at some of the influence, it looked at social media. And then I just got on social media and got on the website and just stalked the heck out of these people. And you
Mhm.
want to look at what are they doing? Not everything they're doing is right, but are they posting more? What kind of content are they posting? Are they engaging? How big an audience do they have? Do they have offers? I mean, whatever it is that you're ultimately selling. And so having them go back through this exercise again with their real clients, the advantage to doing this kind of business development and team building is they're talking between themselves. They're getting excited. They're coming back to the meetings and say, hey, I looked at these guys. You looked at those guys. But the other thing that's really exciting is they're sounding smarter and smarter in front of their client.
Oh, right, right.
They're saying things like, hey, I looked at 3 of your competitors. Would you like a copy of that report? Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of these exercises are designed to help the team get better at strategic marketing, really learn their clients, but then also improve their confidence because now they have things to say in meetings with clients. And particularly when you're dealing with younger employees, they're going to back down a little bit. And if you're trying to develop them as account execs, if you're a business owner and you ultimately want a business that can run without you, you have to cultivate good
Mm.
account execs. They have to be able to not just go into a meeting and hold their own, they have to be able to go into a meeting and hold their own without you. And that does not happen overnight. You do not have
Right,
that kind
right.
of trust. The client will not have that kind of trust. They will not have that kind of confidence. But if you're starting to arm them like this, now that begins to happen. So that's kind of phase 1 of getting started, but there's a lot more. But you could ask a question or two, and then I can hop into the second half because I ramble. I've noticed that.
No, no, trust me, I would interrupt you if I needed to. When you're just downloading gold into the episode, I'm not going to interrupt you. It's incredible. No, I just all the things like it just makes so much sense because, like you said, I mean, I don't think of us as like my agency as order takers, but at the same time, like I don't think of it or maybe haven't as granularly as down to the individual employee or whatever. That really the takeaway for me is really, yeah, there's something that each individual on the team does and they do well. Hopefully, I mean, hopefully you
Mhm,
hired somebody that does something well,
mhm,
but giving them broadening their perspective and knowledge and giving them tools like this to go or room to go out and learn more about all these things. Yeah, I mean, they become much and more valuable, and it probably really does also build their confidence
mhm,
because when they're in a room, they have more knowledge. They're not just sitting there and
mhm,
they don't understand what other people in the room are talking about.
mhm.
That's
Yeah.
one of the things is, that I feel even as business owners, when we're in a room, we're talking to somebody, if you have a broader understanding of the domain and all the things, like I always thought one of my, you know, strengths was the fact that I have a marketing background.
Mhm,
The first decade online, I was internet marketer. So when I'm in a room of marketers, I'm not just a web developer or I'm not
mhm,
just a web
mhm,
designer. Like I can
mhm,
speak and understand what they're talking about and help them better. So that you're doing that for a full team.
mhm.
Um, that's incredible. Do you have any examples in your own team going back like where you did this and it
Well, so I'll give you a couple of examples. Um, One, the first thing I will say is some of my best clients were with us 10, 11, and 12 years.
that's
So
incredible. Yeah.
anybody who's in this business is going, are you kidding? How did you hold them that long?
Yeah, I don't know what the average is. It's like 3 or 4 years, I think, maybe.
Well, and I'm laughing because one of my babies was with me 12 years. When I sold the business, they did not like the new owners, went off on their own, and called me about a year and a half later. And I referred them to someone else. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the agency that I'm currently working with.
Oh, perfect.
So, and I said, if you want somebody who's going to treat you the way we treated you. So, and, we had products that you would be like, well, I'll give you one of my favorite epiphanies that came out of this process. Randall Beans. They make beans in glass jars. They are the only manufacturer that distributes their beans in glass jars,
Really?
which means their beans are always on the bottom shelf in the supermarket because the supermarket is always afraid that if they put them up high, they will fall off the shelf. Doesn't matter. Randall Beans had a loyal following. It's a 100-year-old brand. People love their beans. The problem was that nobody under 65 had ever heard of them, and their customers were dying off daily.
Oh,
And
right.
so what we did is stepped back and said, okay, this is your loyal customers. We don't want to do anything that's going to turn them off. But we need to introduce Randall Beans to a whole new generation. And we came up with a strategy that they still use today, because I've checked in on them recently. And basically what we did is we collected recipes for beans and produced little PDF cookbooks.
Oh,
Simple, right?
yeah.
Chili recipes, bean salad, barbecue bean recipes. We had something like 20 desserts. Oh my God. Did you know that if you take the
What?
water in a white beans, you pour it into a mixing bowl and hit it with a blender, you can make meringue from bean water?
No, I did not know that.
I had no clue. But we learned. We basically educated a generation. We took their email list from 25 to 10,000. We sent out 2 emails a month and did that for, at this point, decades. And they still have a 40% open rate. So because we stepped back and said, who's your customer? We have this. We want this new generation of
Mm-hmm.
cooks. We want to grow this new niche, and we are competing with brands like that are way more well-funded. Bush's, Goya, household names. And we did it. They went from
And you,
three beans to 10 lines of beans.
and you did this because your team thought outside the box and weren't just order takers. Going back to
And because
that.
and at that point I was still, 25 years or 20 years ago, I was still kind of in that younger, not young demographic, but younger demographic. And I could relate. But then also some of my employees were like, well, I would use it for this. I just don't
Mhm.
know how.
Mm.
So, I mean, it really, it was a lot of fun. It
Yeah, so the
was.
team's getting together and you're sharing information, you're
Mhm,
asking questions,
mhm.
you're
Yeah.
surfacing things that you normally wouldn't
Yep.
otherwise.
And then building a funnel
Mm-hmm.
around that, because
Yeah,
then the objective became building the funnel. But I
of
want to
course.
jump to the second part of the process, which is almost more exciting than the
I was
first
going
part.
to ask you that. Otherwise, we're going to have to condense the whole 5 minutes of, and
Yeah.
last 5 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, after a while of doing this, we'd gone through the clients. We would still talk about who do you love, who do you hate, who's making you crazy. One of the most important questions that I would ask is, if you could only work with 3 clients, who would it be?
Hmm.
And then why those 3 clients? And I learned a lot about each of the different employees, about their communication styles based on who they picked and why they wanted to work with them. And I was like, okay, what I'm hearing you say is it's the project. If the project grabs you, you'll put up with all sorts of BS. You, on the other hand, don't care as much about the project as the people. If you don't have a relationship, and then that I could feed back to the owner and say, okay, here's what you got. You got a relationship person. You have a project person. You got a client coming in who's going to be difficult but interesting. Make her the AE. Make this one the AE. Because Now you're being strategic in terms of who you match an individual client with. Okay.
I love that. Yeah.
The other side of that is having a conversation about, okay, if you could fire one client, who would you fire? And again, why? And I'm like, look, it's just you and me talking. I'm not going to go running to your boss. There's no penalty. Who would you fire? And again, you find out who the tension points are. Why are they tension points? Sometimes you can play musical chairs with a customer, and sometimes you can have a conversation that is like, is this a problem that this customer is a bad personality fit or a bad fit for your company? And so part of the process is that your owner needs to be engaged and involved, even if they're not doing the day-to-day lessons. This stuff starts showing up in meetings. They're going to be like, oh my God, what did you just talk about? Okay, well, here's what we talked about, and here's what you need to know. And here's what you need to listen to, because this is coming up a lot, and this is a tension point. And then the last probably 9 months, we've really shifted to what I'm going to call more productivity, because they've mastered the basics and they have more clients and they have more projects, and the work was just crushing them. They had a task management system. They would open it and there were 200 tasks. 90% of them were overdue. And it was just, I don't know where to
stressful.
start,
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I taught them was time blocking. And again, who are your most important clients? We're going to carve out 2 hours a week to work on that client. And you're going to turn your phone off. I can't turn my phone off. You're going to turn your phone off. But what if nobody is going to die from lack of marketing?
Right.
Put it on your calendar so everybody on the team knows this is your time block. Well, but if I spend 2 hours on that, I'm not going to get these other things done. We'll make time for them. Get the big things out of the way. And then I'm like, okay, all that piddly shit that you keep stopping what you're doing, like I'm working on this, and the phone rings and then you stop, you're not allowed to do that. You're going to block out 2 hours a week for piddly shit. I mean, there's no other way to refer to it. And you just create this long task list of all those little things. And then in that time window, you just knock out all those little tasks. And it does several things. You know when you're going to get to it. So now you start adjusting due dates in the project management system.
Right. That's easier. Yeah.
Now you start pulling the timeline back for those big clients that you know you're going to get out of the way earlier. I had a conversation, and they've been doing this for about 6 months now, and kind of rotating and learning kind of like, oh, if I have 2 hours, I can do 2 months worth of blocks or 2 months worth of videos. I had a conversation with one of the employees today who said that on their top 3 clients, it's, I know this is going to be edited in a few weeks, but it's the, 5th or 6th of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And she will not have to work on content again for that client until the 25th or 26th of the next month.
Wow.
Because she's like, now I don't have to have them on my schedule for 3 weeks.
Right.
It's out, it's being approved. I can work on that next group of clients. And so learning how to really manage schedules. And that's not just a marketing thing, but that is something that those time management textbooks kind of talk about it, but don't really. But if you start living it, and if somebody is asking you once a week, how'd it go? Who did you time block? What slipped through the cracks? We don't have to have those conversations anymore. But now they're coming to me going, oh my God, I was gone for 2 weeks, but I'm okay. Yes, you are. Yes,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
And that's it's a wonderful thing. And then the next piece of that is, and this is where we're just starting to dive in now, is difficult conversations. I know you, all of your agency clients are perfect. You have never had a situation where you wanted to reach through the phone and rip out the throat of the person talking to you. I'm sure that has never happened to you. No.
Yeah,
I,
that
on
was
the other
perfect.
hand, am a little high strung. I can tell you it happened to me a lot. And so uh, we have started talking because the question came up, how do I handle these conversations? How do I know what to send? Do I send an email? Do I send a text? When do I escalate? And the conversations that we're having now are really around, okay, it's not a system, it's a system of options. So first you have to figure out the person. Who are you talking to? Is this a one-time something went really wrong and they're very upset? Or is this their operating style? Something is always wrong. They
So you're talking.
always
So you're talking operate the difficult conversations with the team members,
no, it's the difficult conversations with clients.
with the clients. Okay,
With
okay,
clients,
that's what I
yes.
thought. So they're interacting with you, and
Yeah. Like
okay.
one of the clients that we were talking about today, as a matter of fact, was, this client just loves to argue. If something goes wrong, they just want to pound and pound and pound and tell you where you went wrong. And so you try to tell them what you're going to do differently, and they pound and pound and pound. And no matter what you say, it just gets worse.
Hmm.
And so my suggestion was, well, when they do that, you said it yourself, they like to argue. The dopamine hit comes from proving they're superior and from the argument and the fight.
Hmm.
You don't give it to them. So when they do that, you simply pause, little silence goes a long way, and say, I hear what you're saying. Stop. Drives the other person crazy for a moment, but it diffuses the tension. But that technique won't work for everyone. And knowing which clients that technique will work with and when to use that is a trial and error situation. And that's where having weekly conversations and just diving into smaller issues really makes the difference. And I've been doing this now. I have one of her team who I think we're 2.5 years in. One is a year and a half in, and one is just starting out. And we had one who was also with us for about 2 years and then moved on. I think I said to you before we got online, I am doing all the things I wish I had had time to do when I owned an agency.
Right, right.
Weekly accountability meetings with each member of my team. As an owner, I just never had that time.
Yeah, it would be difficult to do as.
And also, it's too easy as an owner to jump from listening to problem solving. And so the conversation stops being about the problem, the solution, learning, and comes down to, well, you're behind on this or you're over. And I mean, it just,
Right.
and so I think if there's one key learning that I've had this go around is that no matter how good you are as a leader, I mean, and I was a trained facilitator and I could do a lot of these things and exercises with my team. But there was a time where I brought somebody else in because I needed to just step back and observe the process. And as business owners, if you want to grow your team, you need to invest for the long haul. Doesn't have to be terribly expensive, but you need to invest for the long haul. And you need to be willing to give the reins to someone else to do it.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a lot of pieces there.
Mm-hmm.
You're covering a lot of ground, and different phases
Mm-hmm.
of this. That I mean, even when you're getting into like when you're talking about right, I would call it the right fit for each individual on the team. Like they shouldn't be working with these type of clients or that type of work or whatever. That we had somebody, a guest not that long ago on that was talking specifically to that piece. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody, if you want your team to excel, you make sure you understand them and know them and learn, and that's what you're doing there. And then the productivity piece, I mean, that's something I'm doing right. That's what I'm really focused on right now. Just where my business is right now is I'm have to be very mindful of my time and time
Mm-hmm.
blocking and
Mm-hmm.
using Pomodoro
Mm-hmm.
and doing using all the tools that I should have been using probably for years, but I have to use them now. But all those are incredible skills. But as a business owner, you're so caught up in your business and running the business and sales. Like if you, depending on how you're structured and who you have helping you, you might be doing all sales. You might be doing all the marketing. You might be, just or building. Um, but to have somebody dedicated, I think that's it's kind of like this. What do they call it? Fractional
Mm-hmm.
work and
Yeah.
stuff. Where somebody comes in and
Yeah.
does some piece of your business.
Yeah, yeah, and I do not consider myself a fractional CMO. I do not want to be the chief marketing officer. I do not want to be directing the team.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a very different objective. I want the team to step into that role. Now,
Mm,
the advantage was when there was an employee that left, I knew the team, I knew the team dynamics, I knew the customers. I
right.
did the first round of interviews.
Oh, nice.
Mhm. And I pre-screened resumes and said, no, we're not talking to this person. I know you're enamored by the cover letter, but
Yeah,
here's the reality. Read between the lines. This is what it says. This is not a good fit for your team. And then the owner did interviews, and then I said, now your team needs to do interviews. And because they have to trust this person more than you, they have to trust this person.
yeah. Trust and like.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
for sure.
they have to they have to believe they can communicate, that they can work together. My team was involved in every hiring decision, and there were times that I had absolutely fallen in love with a candidate, and somebody had to walk into my office and go, "We ain't hiring him." "What? But I can just stop visualizing. We're not hiring them. And then they would tell me why, and I'd be like, "Oh, well, I didn't think about that." No, because you don't have to sit next to them.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hiring
Yeah.
is so many dynamics to hiring. Like I had a conversation with somebody recently where like convince somebody, a bought or owner or whatever, to hire somebody, and you're like, you're not going to like this person. You're not going to want to go out with them for drinks after, but
Mhm.
they're the perfect person that you need right now to get things done in this realm or whatever. So it's there's so many things, but I love the idea of bringing in the team though to in the hiring process because
Mhm.
yeah, they're going to have to work together as a team and fit into culture.
And they'll see things you won't. But when you're talking about, I have always had on every team I've ever put together, on any team or I ran, somewhere in my sphere was my polar opposite, the yin to my yang.
Right.
I'm big picture. I'm sure there's a detail there somewhere. I needed somebody who dotted every I, crossed every T, and then held onto my coattails to make sure that the periods were in place before they let me go. And that balance and understanding that that person made me crazy,
Yeah.
and understanding that I made them crazy. We had a healthy respect for what each other brought to the table. And you're right, I don't want to necessarily go out to dinner with them,
Right.
but
But they completed you.
they yeah, now,
Yeah.
there were one or two times where I did like, I mean, we became friends as well, or we became friends after we stopped working together,
Mhm.
and we could laugh about, how different we were. But I always respected and I always valued that alternative, and I am married to the yin to my yang.
Yeah, I
Um,
was actually as you're thinking about or you're talking about this, so like think about like marriages are sometimes like that. Well, maybe I'm thinking of mine where
mhm,
there's certain we kind of got the yin and yang. Like
mhm.
she's dotting the i's, crossing the t's. I'm out here with my big visions, and you know I'm a little more unstable.
Yeah, I always have the big idea. He's the execution, except when it comes to travel, because that's my joy. But yeah,
Mm, yeah, same kind of thing.
the fun thing is the longer that you do it with a team, the easier it gets.
Mm,
By the time I had been doing it 19 years, and even though I didn't have time to do all the one-on-one, you can bet I ran my team through these steps
yeah.
with every client. And the advantage we had back in the day is we didn't have a virtual office. We were there.
Mm, right,
So
right.
I would sit down with somebody and someone else would be kind of in earshot, hear me going, okay, so talk to me about this customer and who is their client and why do we think that's a good fit for the marketing camp? So you could learn by osmosis. That
Yeah.
is my one complaint with virtual organizations.
Mm. What one last question for you? Kind of put a cap on that. So you do all this work for
Mhm,
this agency. Um, do you when you because you're probably going to at some point
mhm,
leave
mhm,
and leave that agency or leave or the contract ends and now you're going to have all these tools in place. Does it
mhm.
also include like documenting all this and having all the processes and or somebody that's kind of you've trained to kind of step into your shoes somehow or it just will naturally just go and be
So at this point, the person that's been there 2.5 years isn't quite ready to teach what I've taught, but in another year should be
mm,
able. Is it documented so I could hire somebody and build a business that I could let them go? No, because it's the same reason I did not sell these kind of things with my original business. It's my intellectual property and it works not because I'm working off an outline or a textbook, but I'm reaching into, oh my God, when I say this, I'm going to sound so damn 40 plus years of experience. You know, I'm leaning into teams of 5 and 50 that I ran over the years.
mhm.
I'm leaning into what worked and what didn't work. And, um,
I mean, but you're still leaving behind a better team that's
mhm,
learned all the things you've taught them, and
yeah.
hopefully that will become more part of the culture, and
Mhm.
the hiring will have all those things in mind, and just how you approach things, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it'll bleed into everything. Yeah,
at this point, I don't have to check in with them, like I said, on time blocking.
yeah,
That's, that's just how
right.
that's how they operate now. And so with each sort of new lesson or each topic that we take on, they don't have to go back to square one every time they get a new client.
Mm.
You know, we did a content calendar, and and this was one where I said I would do the calendar for them because it was a client in an industry I knew well. But when they looked at it, they went, "Oh my God, that is so simple." hmm
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And all of a sudden they're like, well, I could copy that for, yes, you could. Not only could you
Perfect.
copy it for 3 other clients, you could copy it next year for this client.
Right.
So you know, the advantage is practice, repeat, practice, repeat, practice, repeat until it becomes muscle memory. And that's what I'm leaving them with is the muscle memory. But at this point, I'm hoping to hang around a little longer.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere. Awesome. Well, if Lorraine, if somebody wants to reach out to you, they want to find you, they want to talk to you, they want to dive into your stuff, what how can they find you on the World Wide Web and tell them where they can find your podcast too.
So everything all in one place. morethanafewwords.com. You'll find my podcast. My archive contains hundreds of fun, interesting, searchable conversations. There are workbooks, white papers, online courses, and a contact form. So you can schedule an office hour with me or just schedule a quick, 15, 20-minute chat just to see if you think this makes sense. I'm totally good. And if getting off of social media and going to a website feels a little burdensome, I'm very active on LinkedIn. Look for Lorraine Ball, you'll find me.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us, Lorraine. Good stuff. There's a lot of gold in these hills. I love it. We had a good time. Until next time, take care.
Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Builders Podcast. One more quick note about our sponsors. At Unified Web Design, we're passionate about doing better together, partnering with agencies and businesses to deliver exceptional web design, development, and ongoing support. And UnifiedLabs.ai is where we explore smart, practical ways to integrate AI directly into your website and e-commerce flows. From intelligent chatbots to marketing automation to back-end reporting, all with a strong focus on user experience and making your systems work smarter. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, sharing it with someone who might benefit helps us grow this amazing community. Until next time, keep building smarter, bolder, and with purpose.